imagine it'll be another typical early April day in the Windy City when Corbin Burns and the Brewers come to town to take on Kyle Hendricks and the Cubs. I know our buddy Pete Midhurst will hopefully be at Nationals Park staying dry when the Mets come out to face the Nats tomorrow. Also, of course, it'll be the big debut for Bobby Witt Jr. and company for the Royals.
Right.
As they host the new-look Cleveland Guardians, who sound, like I said the other day, they sound like a roller derby team as opposed to an actual Major League franchise. Then, of course, if you're a glutton for punishment where there's nothing else on TV, you can watch the Pirates play the Cardinals at 4:15. I'm sure that game will be over probably by the third inning, given how decimated Pittsburgh's lineup is and the fact that they have no pitching. Then you've got, Ohtani, he won the MVP last year. He's the front runner for it again this year. Of course, he's going to pitch and bat, so you've got that going. And then out in Arizona, I'm interested to see how the new-look Padres do. They've got a ton of good pitchers. The question is, will they have any hitters with Fernando Tatis out for the first couple months?
Now you got Machado, so there's that.
Yeah. But, you got him, and then you got Will Myers, who's probably overpaid. You've got Hosmer, who's probably overpaid. And they've got to face Madison Bumgarner and the Diamondbacks. So Arizona hoping to have a much better season than last year's dismal campaign that saw them go, what was it, 8-50 from early May to early July.
Yeah, they had a tough road the past few months.
Hope they're better.
I know that the Mariners are getting love, which they should, and I'm bullish on the Angels to get to be a surprise team. But you know what? We got a guest here. Sean is waiting in the wings. We'll bring him in so he can chat with us on all this stuff. Let me start off though, paying some bills, and doing so with our buddies at Caesar Sportsbook. Now, here's the deal: Caesar Sportsbook. It's going to give you $1,100 in first bet insurance. Place your first time wager of up to $1,100 and get it back in the form of a free bet if you lose. So there's really no losing on your first bet when you use Caesar Sportsbook, okay? Now, there is one thing you have to do, and that is you have to use our promo code to get this deal, okay? There's the promo code. And all of that information is in our show box below, which we send you to all the time. All kinds of good stuff is in that show box below. Just so you know, you have to be 21 years of age to participate. And as we always say here at Max Wagers Network, always bet responsibly. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to somebody who you may, if you're a soccer fan, already know. He's an accomplished journalist and an all-around nice guy. He's going to be joining us soon on the Max Wagers Network. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the man, the legend, Sean Miller. Sean, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Tim. How you doing, Chris?
Nice to see you, Sean.
Thank you.
So we're looking forward to you coming aboard and give people a little background on what you're going to be doing with us, and I know a lot of soccer fans are excited about what you've got coming along.
Yeah, definitely. Getting ready, actually flying out on Sunday. I'm flying over to Madrid to see Real Madrid and Chelsea play in the second leg of the Champions League, and then I'm going to head to Manchester to see my team, Manchester United. You can see all these scarves in the background.
Right.
Play Norwich. So, and West Ham play Burnley. So I've been covering English Premier League, Champions League, all kinds of different world soccer since 2013 for NG.com and the Trend Times and the Star Ledger. So I'm going to be basically talking about all kinds of soccer. And one thing about soccer in the betting world is it never sleeps. It's 365 days a year. I mean, there's even games on Christmas and Easter. It's every day, so it never basically ends. And now we have a World Cup at the end of the year this year, so usually in the summer, so that's going to be interesting. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on, so I'll be talking a lot about soccer and maybe a little bit about some Formula One as well, and some racing. So
Sean and I are going to do some F1 stuff. We're big fans of F1. The fun thing, Sean, about soccer, one of my favorite line about the World Cup in Qatar was the line after they announced Qatar had gotten it, and they didn't announce that it wasn't going to be played in the summer. Great line from Ray Hudson, who said, well, they're going to play in Qatar. He goes, I guess the sun was booked that month. So figuring that basically that's the only hotter place that it could be played than Qatar.
It's pretty warm. I mean, it gets up to like 130 degrees where they're playing these games. I mean, in the winter, I guess it's
85, yeah.
They're trying to, they're playing the later two matches of each day, 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock, to try to mitigate it a little bit. But you see, all the stadiums are built, basically in an 8-mile radius, and they all have these giant fans blowing air conditioning into the stadiums. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
And they're also pop-ups. So the stadiums, after they're going to be finished, they're literally going to disassemble them and send them to countries all around the world for soccer stadiums.
Yeah,
it's a wild idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the 2026 one will be here in America, and they'll be playing in the final will be at the Meadowlands, and they'll be playing, with the Lincoln fans, all these stadiums that are already built. But yeah, this thing is, they built them, and then they're going to tear them down and send them all over the place, which is pretty interesting.
Well, is it safe to say that Qatar is the worst team in the World Cup field, John?
Yeah, it's probably pretty close. I don't know if there's going to be any worse teams in it. I mean, it's interesting, too, because the host team always plays the first match.
Right.
So when South Africa had it, I think they got beat all 3 matches. So, their group is, Qatar's group is okay, so maybe they get a point or something. But, yeah, they're not very good. They're probably not going to win the tournament.
And what's the group of death this year? Because, everybody talks about it every year, or every time the World Cup comes around. Where are we looking at it this year?
I think, when you look at US's group is going to be pretty interesting. They don't know who the 4th team is going to be yet.
Right.
It's England, who made the Euro final last year. But, if Wales gets in, Wales is top 15 team, so that's 3 of the top 15 teams right there, so that's pretty good. I think when you look at the rest of them, Group C is pretty tough. Argentina, Mexico, Poland. One of those teams is pretty good. It's not going to come out. Spain and Germany in one group with Costa Rica is pretty tough, and Japan, Belgium, Canada, Morocco. So it's probably Group H is pretty tough. Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, South Korea. It's interesting, too. There's one thing when I was reading about this. In 1984, when France won the Euros, they were in a group stage with Denmark. In 1998, when France won the World Cup, they were in a group stage with Denmark. In 2000, when France won the Euros again, they were in a group stage with Denmark. 2018, when France won the World Cup, they were in a group stage with Denmark. Here we go, France in Group D with Denmark in the group, and we're on the opposite side. France and Brazil are the 2 favorites, so I expect them, if they win their group, should be in the final, but you can get some decent value, although I think it's already dropped from like plus 700, plus 750 down to plus 550 because they see the path they're going to take, which now you can kind of see the path, so that the odds are going to start changing a little bit.
Well, France...
Now, when you consider, Robert Lewandowski a candidate for the Golden Boot?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because if Poland can get through, he's probably going to score a ton of goals in Saudi Arabia. Argentina is, I think, a little bit overrated. Obviously Messi and everyone's going to bet him, but they have younger players coming through as well. But Lewandowski, and he's he's playing in about 45 minutes for Bayern Munich in the Champions League quarterfinals. Have him in one of those risk-free parlays with Manchester City and Liverpool. So I already won those. So need that, but yeah, he's going to score a lot of goals. Usually, the player that wins the Golden Boot doesn't come from the winner.
Right.
So when you're looking to bet some of this stuff, Golden Boot or player of the tournament, usually the player of the tournament comes from somebody that makes the final. But the Golden Boot winner doesn't usually come. It comes from somebody that's maybe playing in a little bit of a weaker group.
Right.
Maybe they get through and sneak into the quarterfinals somehow, or even get into the round of 16 and get knocked out, but you play 4 or 5 matches.
overachieving. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you see somebody from the Netherlands or Senegal who's going to play Qatar,
right?
And maybe they get a hat trick early, and then you find another goal. Usually lately four goals has been winning the Golden Boot, or maybe 5. So you're not probably going to see too much more of that. Especially, it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to be with it's going to be hot once again. So these games maybe are a little bit slower pace. So
attrition is going to take its toll in that regard.
So you're going to see some of those deeper teams, and maybe it's. I think you're going to get some good value with some of these players for the Golden Boot.
One of the things watching Costa Rica in the U.S., the keeper for Costa Rica who plays for PSG, everybody's sitting there going, well, the United States didn't do well. I said, wait a minute. This is a world-class goalkeeper you're playing against, and, you don't have to score any points.
Yeah, Keylor Navas. I mean, he won 4 Champions League titles in 5 years with Real Madrid. I mean, he's very good. And it's tough. You play. USA had already known they were in, too.
Right.
It's tough to go. You go play these teams in Central America. These games are really tough. Even the teams that aren't any good or aren't any, not as good. I mean, it's really tough to go down there and get a win or even get a draw. If you can go down there and get a point, it's good. But US already knew they were in at that point. So, but yeah, he's very good.
We went one time. I was doing a game in Panama, and I got to tell you, it was one thing. Again, the U.S. national team, and you're sitting there going, we may not want to win because we may not get out of Panama if we don't win. It's one of those. Not that I'm saying that the Panamanians would have killed us, just that the intensity of the game to that audience was so intense that you're like, it'd be nice just to wave goodbye and leave here and let them win, be a nice host.
Yeah, it's some of it's the political, obviously, the history of the United States and Central America and every. Well, so when the U.S. goes down there and they're seen as a global world power, and even in soccer as well, they're definitely getting a lot better of late. And when teams go down, it's just really really tough. I mean, there's some crazy stories about the games down there and in El Salvador and Mexico. I mean, going to Azteca and just getting bags of all kinds of stuff thrown at them from the top of the. Yeah, it's a crazy atmosphere. It's like some of them, around the world, it's like that. But it is crazy.
It is crazy. Hey, Sean, you got a few minutes? You want to hang around? We got some stuff to show people, and you can chime in if you want. All right, we're going to go to our first board. Yeah, our first board today is on the NHL, right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Let's add it to the stream
here.
Yeah,
gotta go backwards.
Oops, sorry.
There we go. That's okay.
You got it? All
yeah,
right.
we got the Flames and the Ducks coming in from the Honda Center out there in Anaheim. The Ducks have completely gone off the rails of late. They did have an 11-game losing streak. They managed to get back in the win column for 1. And then they got waxed by Edmonton, 6-1 in their last outing. So they've lost 12 out of 13. They faded right out of the playoff picture. Calgary coming in off a 3-2 win over the Kings Monday night in a game that put me to sleep watching the third period where nobody did anything for the entire stanza other than ice the puck repeatedly. Supposed to be Jacob Markstrom in net for the Flames tonight. He's had a good year. He's 32-14 and 8 with a 219 goals against a 924 save percentage and a league high 9 shutouts against John Gibson 17-23 and 10. 315 goals against a 904 save percentage and 1 shutout for Anaheim. The Flames 7th in the league in goals for at 3.46. They're second in goals against at 249. Anaheim below average in both categories, 24th in goals for at 275. 21st in goals against at 317. The Flames 6-1 in their last 7 as a road favorite. 4-1 in their last 5 on the road. They're 9-3 in their last 12 when their opponent is held to 2 or less. The Ducks 1-4 in their last 5 against the Pacific Division, and 10-43 in their last 53 against teams with a winning record. The one scary stat about this game, Jim, if you're a Flames fan, Calgary is 4-32 in their last 36 trips to the Honda Center. I'm hoping that trend changes tonight because Anaheim is not very good.
Well, my guess is, guys, Sean and Chris, that the problem is that they go down a little early. They go to Disneyland, which is about 10 blocks from the Honda Center. And maybe they have a little too many churros and are not up for playing. I don't know. But, when you're that close to, the Magic Kingdom, you have to sneak by. No, I have no idea. There are some teams, Sean, you know this. Chris, you guys know this. There's some teams that just, for whatever reason, don't match up against teams that you would think they would dominate constantly.
I'll tell you, for me, I mean, this Calgary team has been pretty impressive. And, I think maybe about a month and a half ago, I started looking at their futures odds to maybe come out of the West and win the Stanley Cup. And you can still, obviously Colorado is still the favorite, but if you look at the history of Colorado over the last few years, they lose early in the playoffs. I think this Calgary team is the favorite to come out. Would be my favorite to come out of the Western Conference. And you look at these numbers here, 6-1 in their last 7 games as a road favorite. That sticks right out. And they've just been playing so well right now. I think you got to go Calgary here.
And to Sean's point, the Flames opened the season at plus 3,000 on the Stanley Cup odds. They're now tied for third at plus 900 behind the Avalanche and the Panthers. Speaking of the Panthers, I'd like to thank them for screwing up my game last night by scoring a whole bunch of goals in the third period after Eric Colgren got hurt and left in that 7-6 win in overtime over the Leafs. Of course, it was a good game for the over. It was over by the time you got about 8 minutes into the second period. Who would have thought that both starting goaltenders wouldn't have finished? Jim, did you see any of that game with Bobrovsky?
I did. For the first,
he looked bad.
Yeah, they both looked bad. It was like both of them called relief pitchers. It's like, okay, they're not doing it. Go get me somebody else. Hey, Chris, we'll get to the NBA in a few minutes. Hang on there, buddy. And you first got some stuff. All of these guys on the NBA. We see you. We love you. Don't worry, we'll get to you.
And Detroit Lenny was here.
He was. He made.
And then he left.
He made a moment. So, and Super Sly with the Panthers. Super Sly says the Panthers are just over machines this year. It is crazy.
They score ridiculous amounts of goals.
They do indeed.
They've got a lot of talent.
They give up a lot. Great that they're scoring goals, but you just can't give up that many goals.
They're going to have to find a way to be better defensively.
Yeah, tighten it up.
That's interesting. Like when the playoffs come, it starts to tighten up a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see if they can just keep outscoring teams. You think at some point someone might be able to slow them down a little bit, and that could be a bad recipe for them. Well,
traditionally, when you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, the scores go way down, and it's you gotta play on the knife's edge there because you're afraid that if you can get those odd man rushes real quick when you start overrunning and pushing toward the goal, and all of a sudden you're looking and the puck's going the other way, and you ain't got nobody back there to stop them. So.
Yeah, and to Sly's point, he's right. Florida's gone over 42 times in 70 games. Detroit's gone over 41 times, and the Leafs have gone over 40. That's mainly because their goaltending has been terrible since the new year.
Right.
Hopefully Jack Campbell can get back on track before the playoffs, because I'll tell you what, like you said, scoring goes way down in the playoffs, and we're not going to see these 7-6 and 6-5 type of games that we've been seeing over the last 5 or 6 weeks. It's going to be 2-1 or 3-2, or you're going to get blown out because the other team can play defense and you can't.
Yeah. So from Calgary and Anaheim down in Orange County, we head out to
the Gateway City, St. Louis.
And
the Blues get to face the Kraken for the third time this year.
Yeah.
I'm sure Seattle will be glad when the season's over. They're 22-41-6, 10-21-3 on the road. The Blues 39-20-10. It's been Chris Dredger getting the start for the 4th time in 5 games, Jim. It only took the Kraken 65 games to realize And Dredger might be a better goaltender than Philippe Grubauer. So kudos to them for figuring that out.
Yeah.
He's 7-10-1 with a 305 goals against. Ville Husso, 26-3 with 241 goals against, 923 save percentage, 2 shutouts in net for the Blues. Seattle doesn't score. They're fourth worst in the league at 2.61 goals a night. They're 25th in goals against. Meanwhile, you're facing the St. Louis team that's fifth in the league with 3.59 goals a night, 12th in goals against. Blues 4-1 in their last 5 overall, 4-1 in the fourth game of a 4-game and 6-night set. The last 5 times they've had that situation crop up. They're 8-2 in their last 10 against the Pacific. Seattle 2-8 in their last 10 when their opponent gives up 2 or less. 1-5 in their last 6 when their opponent put up at least 5 in their last game. We saw St. Louis dominate Arizona 5-1 on Monday.
Right.
Kraken 1-6 in their last 7 after allowing 2 or less. They're coming in off a 4-1 win over Dallas at home, but I just don't have any faith in a team that can't score. Which, like we said, it's quite clear that that's been an issue for the Kraken all season long. They also have to play in Chicago tomorrow night, so there's that factor going with it too. And in the 2 meetings this season between these teams, Seattle scored a grand total of 1. They lost 2-1 on January 13th in St. Louis. They lost 5-0 on January 21st in Seattle. I'm not seeing any offensive fireworks from the Kraken.
I'm still not taking the over on this one.
Oh, no, I'm not leaning towards the over either, but I'm also not trusting Seattle to score enough to win.
Right, 100%. Pred's gotten it done last night. Fights all over the place. Matthew is in the house. So
yeah, they beat Minnesota. It was a good win for the Preds. They needed it with the way that the Western Conference playoff picture is shaking out. It's a giant cluster in there when you look.
Only a few games left.
Yeah, when the wild card race is, Nashville's got 84, Dallas has 83, Vegas has 82. One of those teams is going to be on the outside looking in, and then you've got Winnipeg has 76, and Vancouver has 74. Bruce Boudreau's team has to snap out of that 3-game slide,
right?
If they hope to get back into contention.
Sean, you're in the you're in the Jersey area. What's the buzz up there on the Rangers?
I mean, I got a bunch of friends that go to a lot of the games, and I think they're pretty excited about this team right now. Obviously, Florida's probably got to be the favorite. We talk about them, but I think this Rangers team is pretty good, and the way the playoffs are going to just matchups. I think most of these people, most of my friends are confident they can make a little bit of a deep run here, and depending on the matchup in the first round, but I'm pretty confident about them. It's tough. I mean, when you look at the East in Toronto,
right?
I mean, there's got to be some kind of the weight of them blowing these series and not winning the cup. I mean, at some point, you have to. That definitely weighs on you. I'm sure they're going to break through sometime and maybe get back, but I think if you maybe you count them out and you look at some of the other teams, I think the Rangers have a pretty good shot to do something in the East.
This is crazy to say, but I'm not sold on I've seen Florida play a lot. I'm not sold on the Panthers yet. I mean, they score a lot of points. They look good, and then they go out and they play on the road sometimes, and they look like they play down to the competition. They're playing the kind of hockey that scares the living hell out of me when you get to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's tough. You got to be able to shut some of these teams down. You can't just go out there and expect to score 7 goals or 6 goals in these games. I mean, there's going to be some games in the playoffs they're probably going to win 6-2, but it's not going to be like that every night. They tighten up a little bit sometimes on the penalties, and I just think it's going to be pretty interesting to see how deep they can go in the playoffs.
And
it's going to be a matchup if the season were to end right now, and the way it stands, Washington is 9 points behind Boston for the top wild card spot. You'd see the Capitals and the Panthers in the opening round.
That could be interesting.
My Capitals in the Panthers. Okay, so we would see how that worked out.
And have Ovechkin and Backstrom against Huberdeau and Barkov and company. And then you'd have, a couple of underachieving goaltenders with Bobrovsky and Vanacek probably would get the nod over Samsonov.
And you got to figure that Tom Wilson's good for at least 3, major penalties in the game. So there's that. But it's going to be wild. All right, well, let's go ahead. What were you saying, Sean? Go ahead.
One thing that's good about the hockey playoffs, too, is, some of these series, it's not like, the soccer here, the best team going to go to it. Like hockey, there's upsets every year in this first round and the second round. There's definitely some good value in some of these series bets in that first round of series. You can kind of see the matchups and say, you know what, I'm going to take this team at plus 300 to advance or whatever it is. There definitely is going to be some upsets in the first round.
And you always see that those wonky puck things where the keeper's there, he's done everything humanly possible right, and it bounces off some guy's skate, it hits off of some guy's knee, it bounces off the scoreboard, whatever, and somehow, some way it ends up in the back of the net, and the keeper's sitting there going, I did everything right, and the damn puck is still back there. How did it happen?
I still remember when Steve Smith did that when he tried to pass it back in, I think it was 86 with the Oilers in a Game 7 against Calgary, and he passed it back, and Brad Fuhr wasn't looking, and it went in the net. And they ended up losing.
Right, on an own goal.
Knocked them out of the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's wild. Let's go to the NBA and see what's going on the hard court tonight.
I'm sure there's exciting games, but
there it is. Boston and Chicago. Two teams that don't want the first place in the East.
Yeah, a lot of teams playing back-to-backs. Boston actually had yesterday off. Chicago got whipped up by Milwaukee. The Bucks then clinching the Central Division for what seems like the 17th year in a row. It's not that long, but with as dominant as they've been in that division of late, you have to think that things are going in their favor. Caruso is doubtful for the Bulls tonight. I'm not sure where Nathan's seeing that Levine's out for the season. The latest injury report that came out moments ago from the league has him listed as probable for tonight's game with the injury management for that knee. Lonzo Ball, of course, now they're talking he might not come back this season. On the flip side, Boston should have Jaylen Brown and Al Horford and Jason Tatum. They're all probable tonight, which is a good thing. They blew out Washington the other day in a game that I guess the Wizards quit after the first quarter. You look at this one, Boston's middle of the road offensively, but they lead the league in scoring defense. I forgot to change it. The Bulls are not first in scoring offense. The Bulls are actually, I think they're 12th, which shows that I mistyped.
It's close.
No, they're 11th. Yeah, they're 11th.
Just forgot
an extra one.
Going against
the number one scoring defense, having to play. Yeah, there you go. Having to play the second game of back-to-back, Chicago hasn't had a lot of success in that. They struggle stopping teams defensively. Opposing teams shooting better than 47% from the floor against them. Boston 5-0 in their last 5 after putting up at least 125. And let's face it, they went way past that against Washington. 4-0 in their last 4 on the road against teams with a winning home record. The Bulls 3-9 in their last 12 against teams with a winning straight-up record, and 1-10. Last 11 games against teams with winning percentage above 600. We talked about this yesterday, Jim. Since January 1st, against the top 8 teams in the league, Chicago now 0-16 in those situations.
Yeah.
Guess what? Boston falls in that category of one of the top 8 teams in the league. Not looking all that good.
And Miami, as we said yesterday, is starting to get healthy.
Yeah.
And that's...
The Heat, I think, have pretty much locked up the top seed in the East now, much to the chagrin of what Tim was saying yesterday. The Heat are 52-28, Boston's 49-30, Milwaukee's 49-30, Philadelphia's 49-30.
They don't have enough games
all those
to
teams can get to 52.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those teams can get to 52, so it'll come down to, time, head-to-head matchups and things like that, but in the end, I think, Miami's going to end up winning top seed in the East, whether they like it or not. But tonight doesn't look good for Chicago. Fortunately, they have a little bit of a cushion to avoid falling into the play-in tournament as they're 2.5 games ahead of Cleveland. Who, thanks a lot, Cleveland, not showing up last night, losing to Orlando, of all teams. You know, if you lose to somebody good, that's one thing. But you lost to Orlando, the worst team in the East, a team that has 21 wins. The only team Orlando's better than is Houston. And we've talked enough about Houston all season long to know that Houston is a bad basketball team.
By the way, just for the record, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank the Los Angeles Lakers for participating this year in the NBA, and they will be getting a version of the home game whenever the season is over. They're not playing in the postseason. So
they can play in the Rooker League tournament up there in New York City.
Right.
They can play some street ball. Might be better for them.
Well, 3-on-3, yeah. All right, so the Bulls and the Celtics played in the Windy City. We're going from there to
the Nets and the Knicks.
A couple of teams that Sean knows a little bit about there, buddy.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Knicks, after last year, I think there was a lot of excitement about the team. I played well, and then they lost in the first round as a higher seed to the Hawks. But just been brutal this year. Just never really in it. Eliminated from the playoffs. This Brooklyn team, I think, is a little bit scary right now, depending on where they are in that playoff picture. They get into that. They finish ninth, I think, playing against the Heat. That would be very interesting. If they finish in that 7-8 spot and then win that game and play whoever they're going to play, Boston, Milwaukee, Sixers, that would be pretty big. I think you look here, the Nets probably have to take this game. They have to win. I don't know what the Knicks are going to be playing for. But in the East, just talked about Boston a little bit. I think right now, looking at them, they would be my favorite to come out of the East. I put a little wager on them to win the Eastern Conference. Very good defensively. So, but if the Nets do get in and they win that playoff, whatever playoff game they're in, and get into that 1 or 2 game or series, that's going to be really interesting for those teams that finish first or second, because the Nets are going to be definitely going to be dangerous at that point.
Who do you think matches up best with the Nets? If you had to pick out of those 4 teams we talked about, Sean, the Heat, the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Sixers.
I think the Nets could beat the Heat if they get into that series. I think the Celtics' defense is pretty good, and obviously they have the scoring from all over the place. I think the Celtics will beat the Nets. The Bucks probably as well. I remember that series last year, but it went down to the wire. It went down to overtime in Game 7, so that would be pretty interesting. It would be really interesting if the Nets got the Sixers in the first round after that trade, and just the way the Sixers are. I mean, they're a mess. I mean, they're winning some games, but they're off the court and on the court. Depending on where they finish, that could be really, really interesting in the first round. If the Sixers ended up getting the Nets, I think the Nets could beat them.
One of the things that Chris and I have talked about, Chris specifically, has been giving props to Coach Thibodeau at with the Knicks this year, trying his best to put together a team that could play defense, but they just didn't. They kind of mailed it in for the guy. I mean, he's a good coach, and I hope that there's not any thought about replacing him with somebody else and penalizing him for the poor play of the Knicks this year.
The interesting thing about the Knicks too is it's that last year was finally like that glimmer of hope, like we've turned the corner. Like
right.
They've been so bad for a while, and kind of really need the Knicks to be half decent. At least you want them to be competing. And there was this glimmer. Oh yeah, they had a really good year, and then all of a sudden now it's just back to the way they were. And just it's just really got to be frustrating to be a Knicks fan right now, just seeing the way they played last year. So. Crazy.
Well, yeah, like LA's friend Tony says all the time on the show, He's one of the only Knicks fans left, him and 5 guys in Schenectady, and that's because they lost the TV remote.
That's about right, yeah.
That's about it. Let's go for 2 for the money here. We got some 2 for the money time.
Yeah, we already talked about these. I mean, but they're pretty obvious when you get right down to them. The Flames should beat the Ducks. I know we talked about how scary that 4-32 mark in the last 36 games in Anaheim is. But on the bright side, the Flames were in Los Angeles Monday. They play tonight. Tomorrow they go to San Jose. So maybe they don't have time to go and eat a bunch of churros and be sluggish out on the ice. Anaheim pretty much mailed it in. I have to think the Flames can play and get the win here. They needed to keep pace in that crowded Pacific Division race. The Blues and the Kraken, we talked about Seattle, is not a good hockey team. But I guess, that's the curse of being an expansion team after Vegas. You don't get the same kind of benefits that the Golden Knights got with making deals and things like that.
Hard to follow that act. Yeah.
That's true. And then the Celtics over the Bulls, like we said, Lonzo Ball has been shut down. He's done for the year. And the Bulls played the second game of back-to-back after getting waxed last night. And the Nets over the Knicks, because like Sean said, the Nets need this game. Right now they sit 8th in the East. They're tied with the Hawks with a 41-38 record. The Hawks will play the Wizards tonight. That's called foreshadowing, kids. And this will be a good game for the Nets. Facing the crosstown Knicks. Everybody knows the friendly rivalry there is between these two teams, and the Nets desperately need to win here. If you look at the injury report, Randall, of course, is done for the year now for the Knicks. Reddish has been out for a while. Rose, same thing. They ditched Kemba Walker midway through the season after being all excited about how they signed him. So, he really fit into the team. Quentin Grimes and Miles McBride both questionable tonight. And then for the Nets, you won't see Goran Dragic. He's in the health and safety protocols. James Johnson is questionable. Ben Simmons, well, if the Nets make it to round 1, maybe you'll see him then, because they've already ruled him out for the rest of the regular season and the play-in tournament.
By the way, Detroit Lenny, I agree with you. There's nothing better than watching Stanley Cup playoffs when it comes to playoff hockey. It's fun to
Until
watch.
Your team loses in quadruple time of Game 7.
Yeah, that's a.
Or lose to the Montreal Canadiens.
And Nathan hates the Wizards, and right now Nathan. Yeah, right now Nathan, I live in Washington, and I hate the Wizards too. So there you go. It's
but
they haven't done anything for me lately.
That's why everybody hates them.
What's that?
They beat Minnesota. That's why everybody hates them.
Well, that part I can't help, but they've not done a lot for me lately either. Let's go for 4 for the show.
Yeah, I'm going to start it off with an actual player thing. I'm going to steal one from Rachel and go his route. I think Jaylen Brown will go over 34.5 combined points, rebounds, and assists. If you look in his last 10 games, he's averaging almost 29 points a game. Makes it pretty easy to go over that number if you're putting up those kind of points. And look, there's the Wizards. We just talked about them. They're terrible in the second game of back-to-back situations. You have to wonder why Washington even wants to show up for this game. Of course, I said that yesterday, and they, of course, hung 130-some points on Minnesota. I don't expect them to do that tonight. Of course, Kuzma's still out for the Wiz. On the flip side, the Hawks won't have John Collins or Lou Williams. Gallinari and, to quote Chuck, the other Bogdanovich, Bogdan is questionable tonight. He did play last night, though, in the game against Toronto, so hopefully he'll take the floor there.
Not the tall Bogdanovich.
Yeah, the other one.
Right.
Winnipeg over Detroit. I know the Red Wings won yesterday over Boston. Screwed up a lot of things for a lot of people. But let's face it, the Red Wings are going nowhere this season. Much to the chagrin of Detroit Lenny, who last month on this show told you that the Red Wings were going to sneak into a wild card spot. That didn't pan out. And Tampa Bay, Jim, in Washington. I'm going to go with the Lightning over the Capitals in a game with two teams that are struggling as far as goaltending. Vasilevsky just 11-8 in his last 19 starts. he struggled Monday night. Washington has had struggles in net, whether it's Vanacek or Samsonov. What's your take on that situation?
What with the goalkeeping in Washington?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why they went after Marc-Andre Fleury. They didn't get him, but they went shopping, and they didn't get any blue light specials in the goalkeeping aspect. So basically, they're just going to have to hope that they can tighten down defense and play with a couple of keepers that they're not overly, confident with. As for what's going on the Lightning side, it's hard to figure out why Vasilevsky's not playing well, because Vasilevsky's as good as any keeper in the league. So that's a mystery to me on that one. But you got two teams that actually need this game tonight, if for nothing else, to get them back on the track as they head into the playoffs. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be a very close, very tightly played game, and we'll see how it plays out. But I'll watch this one because I think it's going to be an entertaining game.
Because on TV.
Well, there's that. Yeah, that does mean.
Oh, so not TV.
I'm sorry, it's on the TV locally. So yes, I will be watching it.
Game myself.
Sorry.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game myself. I think with the way the goaltending is.
It could be. And both these teams can score. So, could be 6-5.
What do you make of it, Sean? You have any thoughts?
About the parlay or about the Capitals?
About the Capitals and the Lightning in particular here.
I like, I think this Lightning team, obviously, two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. They actually have Ross Colton is from, the town over from where I grew up in Hamilton. He's from Robbinsville, New Jersey. Scoring some goals, came up, played well. I think Tampa Bay is going to start kind of gearing up here towards the playoffs here down the stretch, and I think that's probably a pretty good play right there at -1.5. I just they're one of these. I think they've cruised a little bit, and I think they're just going to start to ramp up here as we go into the playoffs. Obviously, as they try to win a third in a row, so it looks like a pretty good play there.
The one thing I don't think, when you play as many games as Tampa Bay has over the past two seasons, because, you have to factor in the playoff games that have been involved, I just don't see the Lightning as being anywhere near as sharp as they were over the last couple of years heading into the playoffs. Now, that could be just, that could just be the malaise before the playoffs. But
they remind me a little bit of the Houston Rockets team the second year when they they finished sixth in the standing, 94.
Yeah.
And just the plus and just turn on. But the thing is, I don't think they're as good of they might not be as good of a team this year. Mm-hmm. So they might that, like you said, it wears on you. Hockey's one sport. I mean, if you're playing an extra 56 games or 52 games over the last few years or whatever games, I mean, that's almost an extra season that starts to wear you down, and that could catch up to you. But yeah,
absolutely. All right, now Sean, you're going to be witness to something that we like to call the menu. Okay. In this one, we've had a lot of success with people who have hit a lot of different parlays coming out of this, because we say to them, as a Chinese menu, you can have, pick 1, pick 2, pick 3, pick whatever. We've actually had some people that hit all 10. So let's go to the shot in the dark.
Well, Lenny, this one's for you. I'm going to take the Pistons with the points over the Mavs. It seems whenever the Pistons are an underdog, they seem to win games. I think there's something like 17-4 or something like that against the spread in the last couple of months. Dallas, the Mavs will probably win the game, but the funny thing is that the Pistons always find ways to come back and cover the line. We've seen them do it. We saw them beat Philadelphia outright not that long ago. And the Mavs, they find ways to let big leads slip away and narrow the margin. The Utah one is just funny because there's no way in hell that I would touch this game normally, but since there's a short schedule, we had to put it in here. Oklahoma City is playing the second game of back-to-back. They scored 98 points last night against Portland. Utah beat Memphis in overtime, and they're at home. Just looking at the injury report again, in case you don't know who's out for the Thunder, anybody you've ever heard of.
Everybody.
Yeah, Darius Bazley out, Lucas Dort's out, Derek Favors out, Josh Giddey out, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander out, Ty Jerome, Trey Mann, Mike Muscala, and Kendrick Williams. So look for a lot of Alexei Pakasevsky and Theo Maledon, along with I can't remember who Jalen Ford, I think, is the current big man of the moment for the Thunder.
We might be able to get a game, us three. We might be able to get on the roster for the
That's
rest
right.
of the season.
Yeah, no, I'll do it. Hey, I'll take a free check.
10-day contract.
What do you think of
Works for me.
what do you think of Lenny's two-teamers? The Pistons +8 and the Wings or the Jets over on 6.
I like it. I think the Wings and Jets are going to end up over. Well, I think it'll go over. I actually had it under 6.5, but I think that was a typo on my part because I looked at a couple different games at once. I can see it going over 6 because we said, is it Nedeljkovic starting again tonight, Lenny? Is that what they're going with? Or are they going to go back to Thomas Grice? If it's Grice, I would definitely say over 6. If it's Nedeljkovic, I'd probably still say over 6 because neither one of them has done a great job keeping the puck out of the net. And the fatigue factor is definitely going to set in for Detroit as well after playing last night. Connor Hellebuyck is expected to be a goal for the Jets. Sly will be looking forward to that one. You believe it? Okay, Lenny says he believes it's Grice. Well, then definitely I would think the over's in play here. When I did this, it was at 6.5, so I can see it going over 6. I can see it being 5-2 or 5-3 or... Yeah, there you go. Thomas Grice can't stop a beach ball, according to Lenny, and this is coming from a Red Wings fan, so how about that? The Wiz and the Hawks. Yeah, I know that number started lower than it was in 228 range last night. It's now 233.5. I still think they'll end up going over it. You look at recent games between these or for these teams.
Defense is optional.
Like yeah, defense is optional for sure. You look. Washington has gone over in 4 straight games. In those games, they've had totals of 237, 238, 246, and 246. That includes an impressive 32-point whipping of the Mavericks last week. Fittingly, April Fool's Day. Because that's the only time that the Wizards can beat anybody convincingly. Meanwhile, Atlanta's gone over in 4 of their last 6. One of the two that are in the 2 unders in this stretch, they scored the total of 237 against a 243.5 number in the Nets game. And they had 226 last night against a number of 226.5. The 4 games prior to that, totals of 231, 255, 254, and 238. We know Washington is allergic to defense. Atlanta isn't any better. They're 22nd in scoring defense. Look for a track meet there, and that'll push over the mark. We talked about Boston and Chicago as far as the game itself. I think it'll end up over 221. We've seen Boston hang a whole bunch of crooked numbers of late. Recently, if we go through the Celtics' last 10, they've scored 110, 126, 124, 132, 125, 134, 112. They had 98 against the Heat, but we know the Heat can play defense. 128 and 144. So you're talking about 7 games in the last 10, they've hung at least 124 points. You're facing a Chicago team that doesn't really play all that well defensively. 26th in field goal percentage defense, 26th in three-point defense. Their second worst as opponents shoot 79.6% of the line. 221 seems low. I think that one will end up over the mark. Vancouver and Vegas, we saw these teams play the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3-2. I'm not expecting anything different. I know the venue changed. They're not playing at BC tonight. They're playing in Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. I still don't think we're going to see a whole lot of goal scoring. The expectation is Robin Leonard's going to play, which is good for them. Vancouver's gone under in their last 5 as an underdog. Their last 4 as a road underdog, and they've gone under in their last 4 on the road, and 6 of their last 7 overall. Vegas has seen the under go 4-0-1 in their last 5 in the second game of a home-and-home set. And if you look at the recent meetings, 4 of the last 5 between these teams have fallen short of the mark. I look for that to continue here. We talked about the Kraken and the Blues. Not expecting any goals from Seattle to help this number, so I look for it to stay under 6. Tampa Bay and Washington, like I said, I expect you over 6.5. Like you guys said, both teams can score. Both teams have had issues defensively and in net. So this could easily be 4-3, 5-3, 5-4, 8-7. A high-scoring affair. And I'm going to go with Steven Stamkos to go over 2.5 shots on net. He hasn't taken a ton lately because he keeps setting up other guys. What's up with that? You're supposed to be a scorer. But I think he'll fire some rubber on that tonight and go over the 2.5 shot mark.
I wouldn't be surprised. Again, he's out there, and it's funny whenever players like Stamkos and you guys have seen this, when they play against Ovi, they tend to want to step up their game, and it becomes kind of a badge of honor to see who can get the most shots on goal when they're playing with Ovechkin on the ice. So I wouldn't be surprised if Stamkos gets 5 or 6 shots on goal. Probably 1 or 2 of them will go in.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah. So there's that for sure. So, Sean, look, we appreciate the fact that you hung around with us, and we're looking forward to seeing you on Max Wagers. Now, just for those of you who are new to watching us, we've got a bunch of things going on here, which will include Sean very soon. Midday Money with Sean Higgs, noon. Monday, we got Monday, Friday on all of this. Morning Wood with Allie Burns, 1 to 2 p.m., just parlays with the guy next to me, Chris King and me. Then move over. Scott, 3 o'clock, and game time decisions with Nick, Tim, and Lenny at 5. And coming soon, hopefully, in that 4 o'clock slot, will be Sean. So we will see very soon what's going on. We hope everybody had a great day today. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen, as we come to an end here on a very busy Wednesday?
Good, John.
I think that's some good stuff there, and definitely with these as hockey and basketball starts to end the regular season and get into the playoffs, both basically around the same time. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see how these things play out over the next month and a half. I think it's really wide open in both NBA and NHL. So you see some of these lines and some of these teams trying to pick them. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch, and you're going to get some pretty good value in some of these bets. And I don't think it'll be all the favorites coming out. I think once you with these upsets in the first round, you're going to be able to see some pretty good value bets coming out.
Yeah, to your point, I can't remember a time when there really hasn't been clear-cut favorites in the NHL or the NBA. I mean, you could shake them up and have 4 or 5 teams. Any one of them you could make a case for to win the Cup and Stanley Cup playoffs or the NBA playoffs.
I agree.
So it is.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I'm hoping to see teams like Colorado get knocked out because, these teams that coast through the regular season inevitably find ways to crash and burn in the playoffs. We talked about the President's Trophy curse that can derail teams because they get an inflated sense of self-worth and then, tank because they play some team that they think they're better than and then they lose. I think that could happen to Florida. I don't know if Florida can contain Washington, because one thing Washington has in spades over the Panthers is playoff experience. And, you can't replace that. That's something you can't teach. You can teach somebody how to deke somebody out or how to tee up a slap shot on a one-timer. You can't teach playoff experience, and that's something that the Panthers are going to have to learn.
And sometimes these teams get hot, and they have to you're almost struggling. You're playing the playoffs for, a month trying to get into the playoffs, and you've been playing at such a high level that you're just ready to go. And these other teams that have been cruising have to turn it back on. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you can't turn it back on.
That's true.
Look at Montreal last year. They ran all the way to the finals.
Yep.
unfortunately. But, reality set back in for them this year, so that's close.
There's that. Okay. Any final questions from the class? Anything that you see there, Chris, that we haven't answered?
No, nothing I see. Lenny, you got to come back on sometime.
Yeah, jump by,
now
Lenny.
the baseball season's coming up.
Yeah.
But no, it looks like we got everything covered.
We got it all, huh? Well, Sean, safe travels, my friend. It's great having you on the network. We're looking forward to having you talk soccer, and you and I will work on that F1 situation, and we're going to have some fun, and we appreciate the fact that you hung with us this afternoon and had some fun. We appreciate it.
And definitely, I'll bring you some spars back from the
There you go. There you go.
Good.
All right. Well, look, travel safely, ladies and gentlemen. Sean Miller. Sean, shameless plugs. Where can people find you?
My Twitter's there at the Prodigal Sean. I'm in ng.com, writing weekly columns, covering all kinds of stuff, and we have all different sites.
All right.
Site up soon, but mostly the social media and writing for doing some stuff for the NFL for how-to-bet.com.
Okay, outstanding. We'll follow the Prodigal Sean, and I'm sure that's where you can find everything. So we'll get it that way. All right, brothers and sisters, thank you all for dropping by. We appreciate it. Opening day tomorrow, and we will be ready for it.
At least in some parks.
In some parks, true. We will be ready for it. We'll have some fun. So be with us tomorrow. Thanks, of course, as always, to Chris King and to our special guest, Sean Miller. Until tomorrow, everybody, have a great day. Be safe. And coming up at 3 o'clock in a couple of minutes, it'll be Scott and Scott back to the window right here on the Max Wagers Network.